Hello fellow racers and welcome to the Austrian track guide of Spielberg, Styria. The 2.683 mile Red Bull Ring circuit has a total of 10 turns, 3 to the left and 7 to the right, and it is one of the fastest and most iconic tracks in the Formula 1 regime, being used back in 1969 with modifications made along the years. This has also witnessed legendary drivers setting fastest lap like Niki Lauda, Nelson Piquet and Michael Schumacher amongst others as the track evolved. The circuit can host up to 40,000 spectators. Recent years show that this track rises a lot of tire temperatures and hence medium to hards were the recommended tires. However, for the F1 2021 game, the soft and medium tires seem to be the optimal usage of tires, varying between 1 to 2 stop strategies depending on the aggressiveness of the driver in question. The fastest race lap was made by Carlos Sainz on the McLaren, which was back in 2020, and the time was that of 1 minute, 5 seconds, 0.619 milliseconds. So let us go through this track guide with a Red Bull car. This is an equal performing car and I am currently using ABS and of course the racing line, although it is not shown in this replay. One will knows that this track is not so hard, but at the same time so easy to get track limits and lap invalidations. So one needs to really ace the corners and taking the best out of each and every corner, although there are only 10 corners with one corner basically not being considered at all, which is basically turn 2. So there are very few turns which the driver needs to really maximize out of it, because unless you maximize out of these corners you will lose a couple of tenths, and a couple of tenths in this track would really mean that you would lose a lot of places. So let's get on with it. So we are going to start the lap and we are noticing that before applying the full throttle we will need to go down to gear 4 or gear 5 depending on how the car turns and how you feel best for the car to turn. So in my case I have gone into gear 5, I have turned on the DRS and I have started the lap, trying to get the best speed and the best width of the car. And in this case at almost the 75-meter line we are going uphill, so the car will help us to brake faster. I'm using the whole width of the track in order to get turn 1, the apex of turn 1, as efficient as possible. So I'm going down into gear 4 and exiting the turn. While exiting the turn I'm going to go in turn 5, trying to slowly plant the throttle but not too much because it's so easy to spin in that corner. So let's see how this car will perform. So we have gone down to gear 4, we have planted the gear 5 and gone gear 6, turned on the DRS. I'm trying to use the least distance of the track as possible, and now we're going up into the uphill. Going into turn 3 I have used all the track possible. However, this is one of the trickiest turns of the track and we're going to arrive to a hairpin. So at the 75-meter line more or less you will need to start braking. You cannot touch the curb because it will take longer to brake for the car, so you will need to use the tarmac rather than the curbs in this case, and you will need to literally hit the apex of the hairpin in turn 3, going down into gear 2, and as soon as you try to exit that part, remember that this would be the climax of the track. So once you're gonna turn, the car will literally almost spin unless you will really hold the car. So it is a little bit of a test of when you will have to try to push the throttle again. So let's see how this will fare. We have braked in gear 2, we have touched the apex, gone into gear 3, planted the speed, gear 4, gear 5, turned on the DRS, and we're going full blast towards turn 4. Again at almost the 75-meter mark we are going to brake again. We are going back into gear 3. This is a downhill, so the car will still follow through even during the corner, and you will feel that chronic understeer calling you. However, you will need to really control the car and not touch a lot of the curb. In fact, here I didn't touch the curb as well. I kept on the track as possible. However, you will note the car going into the inside curb and then trying to go all the width of the track without spinning the car. You will note that there will be a slight wobble of the car. However, it didn't lose me any time. So let's see how this will fare. So going into turn 4, braking until gear 3, touching the curb, getting the full width, getting the slight wobble, keeping it to the inside curb, and that is how you make turns 4 and 5. So in this case, going into turn 6, the left-hander, you will need to get as much of the curb as possible. It will help you to rotate the car. And in this case, I am going to decelerate until gear 5, and I will just keep a slight throttle during this left-hander, touching the curbs and trying to get the maximum width and trying to get the throttle as fast as possible. And you will notice that around the 25-meter mark I will instantly brake into gear 5. In fact, I am touching the curb, the inside curb. It doesn't really hurt, but you cannot go full throttle on this curb because it will make the car very twitchy. So you will need to bear that in mind. You will be like throttling not throttling, pressing and not pressing the throttle to the full at this part of the track. I will also short shift into gear 6 so that the car doesn't wobble going into the exit of this turn, and you will know that I'm going to use the full width of the track. Going into this another left-hander, this is one of the trickiest one because if you touch the inside curb you will automatically spin. However, you will need to use the full width of the track if possible without making the car spin. So what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to decelerate into gear 5, so I'm fully into gear 6. It's full rev into gear 6. I will brake into gear 5 in a few meters time. I will keep that gear until I finish the corner, and as soon as I finish that corner I will go up into gear 6 and I will use the inside part of the track as much as possible. Gear 5, going into gear 6, trying to use the whole track, going into gear 7, turning into gear 8, and now we are going into turns 9 and 10. This is also a difficult part where you need to brake and how you will need to adapt to these two turns. You will need to brake into gear 6 and you will need to literally lunge into the inside curb of turn 9 of this right-hander, trying to keep the momentum going as much as possible. It's so easy to spin if you really don't do the turn as efficient as possible, and it's so easy to invalidate the lap. So one needs to weigh these two things in order to get the optimal entries and exits of this turn. In fact, I haven't really maximized out of that curb at all, but I have gone into gear 6 and I have not invalidated the lap at all because I have used all the outside part of the curb as well. I have gone into gear 7 and I'm going into another downhill again, so I will have to decelerate at least to gear 5, but in my case here I have decelerated into gear 4. I am using the curb so that the rotation of the car comes with me as well as I'm turning the last turn, and I will go to gear 4, getting the full throttle as soon as I shift on to gear 5. And this is the lap. So this is it when it comes to the Austrian track guide. I hope you have enjoyed this explanation of how to approach this lap on Austria, and let me know if you have any questions. Thank you and peace out.